Whispers from the River stems from the fact that we have such budding and creative writers across the whole school. They've got so much to say. And so as a department, we're committed to giving a platform to young people to actually explore their own creativity, but in response to their identity within the African context. Really challenging young African writers to find their voice, to show their continent in a multifaceted, diverse fashion, rather than just using the stereotypical images of poverty and suffering that are often portrayed in the media.
My initial reaction was excitement, because I have always loved writing, no matter how cliche it sounds. I actually have always loved writing. And I just knew that it was an opportunity that I would want to take a hold of.
My story is about a girl who goes abroad for university, and it's just, I think, through her journey, how she remains connected with Kenya, where she was born and raised, and just her experiences in trying to remember and learn about her country while being in another country. Also, like me, she went through the British system, so just trying to understand Kenya from a perspective that not a lot of Kenyans go through. Through understanding not only my story, but other people's stories, and seeing how people's perspectives on the countries that they've lived in, the countries that they've connected to, and how you can vocalize your opinion on something that is so important to you. As a continent, there is a lot of talent, and so being able to share that through each and every one of our stories has made me feel connected.
I was born here in Kenya, and then I grew up in the north of Kenya, like in a small village next to the Samburu people. I think writing the story helped strengthen my African identity with myself, just because what helped me to continue to realize sort of the depth of the culture that I just live in every day. And then being at uni now and seeing the opposite side of that in England, where there's not really any of that. Just writing the story and knowing that there's something in Turi that I've left behind, that I can read, that I can show my family, that other people can read also. It's just a nice thing to know that you've left something as you move on to the next chapter.
How I think the story informed the prospective course that I'm going to do at university is that it made me realize that I like researching, because as I said, I did have to do some research to do this story, and I think I realized that I wouldn't really want to focus on a course that would have to condense information and condense knowledge like STEM subjects, but rather look at something that requires, something that opens me up to a plethora of topics on different issues, which I understand law to be. So I think after having written the story, I knew that that would probably be the line of work that I'd want to go into.
As a scientist, it's quite easy for people to assume all we do is equations and numbers and experiments, but I think being understanding of people's social situations and being knowledgeable about how people feel and people's opinions can give you some perspective, because you do have to interact with people in science, and I want to go into biomedical science, which means that the effects of what I do will come out in the people.
Reading the story within the book itself, I drew from that when looking for inspiration for the composition of the foreign book. I saw it as an opportunity to engage my creativity in a way that probably hadn't been before. This was because of sort of the unique challenge to create an image that would be the first greeting of any prospective reader of the stories and the collection itself.
The nature of young people applying for university and selling themselves and their career prospects is a very daunting task at the age of 16, 17, 18. And I think the nature of Whispers from the River, as it is provided them with something very unique and different that they can actually put their name to and say, I have achieved something. At the age of 18, I am a published author. And that is an incredible achievement, and they can always keep that with them.
As I applied to the US, my main application essay was on my journey in discovering myself through my story. This essay did in fact get me into Yale University. Through the story, I learned to discover myself, and so it made it a lot easier for me to talk about my perspectives and what I believe, my opinions, and how I grew in being able to voice what I think about my country.
Some ways in which it benefited my prospects going into university were that it was a strong addition to my portfolio. It was a display of my skills in painting and drawing that validated these skills in the display on a formal publication. As a result, I think that gave more depth to me as an applicant, and this was part of what turned out to be a successful application to Cambridge University.
There are many ways in which students will learn to express what they've learned in class more creatively through co-curricular activities than they would if they simply stuck to the syllabus. So I think the development of talent, be it writing, be it musical, be it dramatic talent, is so important in any institution, and we're privileged at St. Andrews to have projects like Whispers from the River, which enable people who might be writers or who might be something else to develop that talent and with time grow in appreciation of what their strengths are.
It feels cool to be have my writing in a book that I can read, that is published, that I can show my grandmother and send to her a hard copy of a book.
I'm thankful for the amazing group of people that I worked with, including the teachers and the students.
One of the privileges I had, that not only the people that we were writing with that were genuinely amazing, but also just people in school that were just very excited about the whole idea. That was very encouraging. Know that there's so many people who are your number one fans. Because much as my life may change and circumstances will change and things will become busier, I will always know that it's something that I can do and something that I've already done. And me at 30 telling myself, Shiko, you wrote a story at 15, surely you can do this again. It's an inspiration that I will have for the rest of my life, and therefore will be able to write much more.